Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm so excited for season 2 and the great guests you're going to hear from, their struggles, how they overcame their struggles, their triumphs. Through personal and business life, I think they're tied together, and we're going to share great stories about that. This show isn't just about me. It takes a lot of good people working with me. Among them is my partner, H7 Network, and Clay Hicks. Building relationships, building community is the mission of H7 Network. They want to create a network of champions where everybody wins. Find out more at h7network.com. And we hope to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you through our show. Enjoy the show. We'll talk to you on the other side. Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. As I always say, and I'll say again, servants are hard to find, but I found a great one here in Kevin. You're going to enjoy what he's got to say. He's got some cool advice, but somebody you want to just shut everything off and get the golden nuggets that he's going to be spitting out today. Hey, Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I set you up, and I know you're going to do very well with that. Let's start in the beginning, what you started in your work life and what got you where today.
So I was a technical guy out of college. So I was went to work for big computer companies. And what I found along the way is, as much as that tech stuff is great, the thing that really I saw make the big difference in companies is that human to human relationship. So that's part of why I love, the subject of your podcast, that servant leader, that connecting it as a human being. And so I sort of shifted my attention to sort of learn about human beings. And so ultimately, when I started my own business in IT, I was really focused on the human side of IT, how to organize the people, process, procedures, disciplines. And so I grew that IT business to 30 people. And really, I did it. A lot of it was to learn how to be a great CEO, because I saw in my future really being in that space and helping those people. I just love strategy. I love business constitution. I love entrepreneurs. And so I knew that ultimately I was going to want to be in that game and serving that audience. And so I knew I had to get good at it. And so I got teachers and, studied a lot and had coaches and just, and really got to the point where I was, I built a great business, but it was great by most standards. But then I found I didn't love working for big companies, and I really saw it was time to start my life of service to entrepreneurs. And so about 18 years ago, I shifted my focus to take a lot of the stuff that I'd learned to other entrepreneurs, and so that they could, achieve their dreams more quickly. Really,
I love that you educated yourself. It's a great lesson for the audience. And you had coaches. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, come top of my head, they all had coaches for a reason. So I God bless you for doing that and telling people that. What are you doing today, and how are you serving your clients and people you meet?
Yeah, I do it in a couple of ways. So I've been an EOS implementer for a while, Entrepreneurial Operating System. And with those guys, I work with companies that have 10 to 100 people. And they have a leadership team. And so if you've got a leadership team, if you're to that scale, to me, the best thing you can do to live your dreams is to implement EOS, because it really solves a lot of the problems that plague people in that size of the company. Along the way, I worked with a lot of solopreneurs and saw that they were struggling. A lot of those people want to get to the point where they're sort of an EOS client, but the EOS doesn't solve the problems they have. And so I started another company called Fastest Route to help those guys get to the point where they had a leadership team as quickly and easily as possible. And so with those guys, it's a different problem, right? So the people that are trying to run a business with 10 to 250 people, their big issue is like getting the most out of the people in their organization. Solopreneurs, they have a different set of challenges. A lot of it is business design, and they don't know it. They don't realize that a lot of the struggles that they're having is because they haven't crisply, coherently, and in a compelling way designed their business. And so I help them do that. And a lot of other things, because that game of being a solopreneur has its own really difficult challenges.
Well, just saying solo fears people.
Yeah.
Because you're really not alone.
Oh, yeah.
Your business is yours, but guys like you can make it easier. And I love the differentiation from a company with 10 to 100 to a solopreneur, because they are completely different animals.
Different, completely different. I mean, I wanted to serve them both in the same company, but it's different market, different concerns, different practices, and that being solo. So I say 1 to 10, so they may have employees, so they're not on their own, but they're really on their own in their head. If they don't have someone else that's helping them lead, another manager in the organization, then man, it is a lonely experience. And this is one of those things, you work on your marketing. What's the experience of a solopreneur? And that's one that everybody recognizes, that sense of being alone. You got a whole bunch of people want to give you advice that don't know what they're doing. And so you get, everyone giving you advice, and one of the first things you have to learn is how to kindly ignore most people, because if you've never been in that game, it's a different phenomenon. And so one of the things that I've learned is like those at that stage, one of the most important things is to have a peer group, other people to talk to. You've got to be in conversation with others, and there's like inexpensive ways to do that, less impact, but the more impact, you often have to spend some money. But the key thing is like being in conversation with others, because we're really smart. Most of us entrepreneurs, we got a lot of smart ideas in our head. The problem is we got a lot of crazy ones in there too, and we don't know the difference. I worked with the business plan competition for 10 years. And so I saw hundreds of people and talked to them, and they tell me what they're up to. And a lot of times it's going, that's never going to work.
Wow.
But they can't. But when you're in your own head, and I'm sure you've had this experience, like you're living in this place about what a great idea this is, and then you go talk to people and they go like, yeah, not so much. And so you've got to be with people that you trust, so that they can, so that you can steer yourself in a great direction. I mean, this is one of the big things I saw working with as EOS companies, because I work with the leadership team of my EOS clients, and just the power of that and how we really tighten that up and make it a real coherent team, is so powerful. And when I was working with solopreneurs, that the gap of that missing that is so impactful. And so it's just really getting to other people to talk to, because it's lonely. You're making decisions all the time, and man, you got to let somebody in there.
Yeah, no, decision making is an important thing. You mentioned business plans.
Yeah,
what
business
is
plan competition.
What's the common mistake people make in business plans, if there is one?
Oh, it's an interesting domain, because when I was in the business plan competition, this was a real thing. And in a way, business plans have diminished in their effectiveness and the way that they're embraced. And it's a funny thing. When I was in the middle of the business plan competition, they'd asked us to do some research and get some research on the effectiveness of business plans. And what I found is they're actually counter. Having a business plan is actually a counterindication to success. But when you search for business planning and success, there's a very strong correlation. So people get a plan and they get fixated on the plan. And when you're a solopreneur and when you're small, it's a life of pivots. And so if you've gripped in some story about what you're going to produce, and then you're not paying attention to what's going on in the world, then you get bogged down. Whereas a constant business planning process is extremely powerful. And so this is what's behind the lean movement, right? So, the notion of a lot of people want to plan their business. And the real key thing is like, no, encounter your customer early and often, as early as possible, fail fast.
Yeah.
Fail forward fast,
How important is a business plan for an entrepreneur?
Well, so if you search for business plan and download a template, that template isn't going to be very good, in my experience. So one of the things that I did in the business plan competition, because what I learned is both the coasts, like the venture capital firms, stopped using those forms like 15 years ago.
Wow.
And so it's a different orientation. And so it's not like having a plan is a bad thing. It's that like 1920s, 1950 templated kind of, what they are is their market opportunity assessment is what that is. And so what I did in the business plan competition is I started up another competition with using the tool for business planning in the entrepreneurial operating system called the Vision Traction Organizer. So use the VTO. And that form gives you way more, it boxes you in to making decisions about business design that are more essential to success, right? And so, so one of the things I do with my EOS clients is we do what we call a 90-minute meeting, which is educational. I get the leadership team and I teach them EOS. And along the way, what I do is I ask them, one of the things in the VTO is the 10-year target. What's your long-term goal? And when you get in that group and you ask what's that long-term goal, it's shocking how often the leaders are not in a complete alignment. And it's one of those indicators like, man, get on board and figure this out. And so as it turns out, a lot of times they may have a really good plan for the next 3 months, but they don't know where they're going in the distance.
Gotcha.
And so what it turns out is like the way that human beings are is if you get everybody crystal clear on the objective, like who are we, where are we going, then everybody can like navigate the path much better, right? The plan becomes actually kind of almost like the least significant piece of it, because what happens is if you don't know where you're going, ultimately, if we don't have an agreement, then, no matter what plan you get, this God only knows what that's going to do. So anyway, a business. So I think of a business design. So we're not very good at business design, especially solopreneurs. We leave it really fuzzy. We leave it. Who do what's your target market? Oh, anyone with money. And
yeah.
And what do you do for them? Oh, whatever they want. Of course I'm paraphrasing and I'm making a joke out of it, but people, it's very scary as a solopreneur and you don't want to leave any opportunity open. And so what people do is they think it's a better idea to be very flexible, and it's actually, it destroys you. It's really, it's worse. You've really got to stand for something and be somebody and take it, and hold it and have that thing be something that's really coherent with your own heart and soul. Because if you love, because most people, when they tell you how to design a business, the underlying common sense about what they say to do is like, look in the audience, look in the marketplace, find a target market that needs some help, and then become what they need. And that's backwards. That's awful. It's horrible. It works for the venture capital firms. It works for billion-dollar companies. If you want to take 30% of the marketplace, then do that. But for the rest of us normal human beings, it's horrible. The people who succeed, what they did is they expressed themselves. They figured out, who do I love? Who do I want to serve? Figure out what's the concern that they have that I want to serve the most, and what am I really good at doing? And so it's an internal job to figure out, who do I love? What concern matters to me? And then design your business that way, because then when you're out talking to people, your passion just shows, and
That's
people
huge.
are attracted to passion. And so your sales get better. You get better. I just worked with a woman who was like going on a path in her career. And I asked her, when's the last time she studied anything about the material? And she said, it's been 20 years. And now she's often following her heart. And she's just reading everything she can get her hands on about it. It's like, because they love it. And we all see that, right? So if I'm going in a place I love, I'm reading the stuff just because I think it's cool. And then all of a sudden I can help my clients better. So business design is important, and some story about, where are you going in the future? Where are you going in 3 years? Where are you going to be in 3 months? Where are you, or a year, and then 3 months? And then, the planning piece, it's important, but it's not as important as all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And it makes sense. A lot of people need what you do, whether it's you or somebody else. It's always, I'd love for them to reach out to you. Do you work with startups, or does it matter? Is it a company around 20 years or a company that's a year old? Does it matter?
Well, so I find generally that the people that are just starting up, so if they've got customers, if they've proven their idea, then then I can help them. The challenge is that most people, people that start a business, there's a certain sort of crustiness about us, right? We think we can do it better. And you have to have that. You can't, you've got to have that sense of confidence, that strong confidence that says, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd never start a business. And so a lot of times people are really good at the thing they do, right? So I was really good at IT. And so I started a business, but I knew I wasn't good at business. I had an MBA. That doesn't mean I'm any good at business. And so I went to those people that knew the domain that I was now acting in, which is business. It's no longer IT, it's business. But a lot of people don't know that, and they have to suffer. And so a lot of times I find that the people that are open, right? So I can't help anybody that isn't open and isn't willing. And so there's something about being in business for 2 years and struggling and suffering that opens up people's minds. So those people that start and they're just naturally open, that's awesome. But what requires is some realization that there must be a better way to do this, and other people that have been there before might be able to save me some time, energy, and money. That has to be apparent to them.
How important, and I love all that, how important is decision making and taking action in part of what you do?
Well, yeah, so business is a struggle, and this has always been a struggle for me. And a lot of people are like that, where it's I'm sort of a perfectionist, and so I want to make the perfect decision, right? And so a lot of times I'll delay making a decision, and in general, it's just not a good practice, and I have to force myself. It's about action. It's about reasonable thoughtfulness, because the reality is, and this is the difference between lean and historical business planning practices, because we can think all we want, but until we encounter the world, we're just making stuff up. You know what I mean? And so I think it is important to make decisions faster and act based upon those decisions faster, because the reality is you can't make perfect decisions. You just can't. And so the way that you're going to learn what the perfect decision is after the fact. You're going to gather that data and then pivot. And so it's decide, pivot, decide, pivot, decide, pivot. And that's one of those things about solopreneurs, as opposed to my entrepreneurial operating system customers. They've gotten to a point where they're kind of know where they're going, but when you're just starting out and it isn't quite working, it's a lot of pivots. Which has its own dangers, right? So I'm what in the EOS world we call a visionary. And so we talk about CEOs being visionaries and COOs being implementers. And so there's a certain wackiness to us. We get bored easily, and we're changing our minds all the time. So it's kind of, you got to really walk that fine line between, okay, make a decision. And so what I do is, when I'm I'm going to change my mind, I have to go talk to 3 or 4 people to say, am I just being my visionary self and just getting bored with that, and I want to go that way? A new idea.
Yeah.
And so, so it's really stand between the lines. It's no, you don't think of it forever, but don't just change your mind constantly. And this is one of those things where it's important. That's why having a team really matters, right? So, because if we're doing all of this in our own head, man, it's crazy making. It's scary. Which way am I going to go? Burp, 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 burp.
Right. Yeah, as I hear, no decision is the worst decision.
Yeah, I agree.
And you bring accountability when you work with people, and I come to you as a client and go, I got this decision, so I can use you and bounce off you accountability for that, right?
Yeah. And so I think we have a struggle with sort of accountability in the world. A lot of people think accountability is a baseball bat. It's like consequences. And I don't like that sort of orientation to accountability. Accountability is a flashlight. It's social pressure is all the pressure you need, right? So the accountability that I provide is, when I'm working with a client, I will say, did you do that? And then they say, no, I didn't. So I tend to be more on the support side of that. It's some people are hardcore and they're saying, what's the matter with you? Get these things done. And I just think it's such a tough job that, what a lot of times we need more grace, and we need more, and we need to be honest with ourselves and others. And so then we can look at it. So that accountability is essential for us to be able to look at it and make those decisions, because sometimes not doing something is the right idea, but sometimes it isn't. And so it's just looking at it with someone else is powerful. There's all sorts of like these natural mechanisms that we have as human beings that just make those things happen. So our current model of leadership and management came from the military. So when industrial revolution occurred, we didn't really have standard practices for how to organize the activities of, dozens or hundreds or thousands of people. The only people that knew how to do that were generals. And so we had military models for how to lead and manage. And that's a coercive model. And so that coercive model of leadership and management still persists in our muscles and in our DNA as the right thing to do. It's a draconian, forceful, coercive model, because in the military, if you don't follow me, I can kill you. If I give you an order on the battlefield and you don't do it, I can put a bullet in your head and never face any consequences. And so there is a certain orientation of how our reaction, our relationship to people in power and those people, and this sort of that servant's heart is a different thing. It's like social power is a different phenomenon. And so how do you drive that throughout your organization as an entrepreneur, as everybody in your organization? Because part of what I didn't like about those big companies is it's so coercive. It's a command, control, and submit. And it's like, and it doesn't work really well. This is why we have the Great Resignation. People say you can't get good people anymore. And it's like, no, that's not true. But good people are getting good people. If you run your business well with the servant's heart, guess what? Those guys aren't struggling as much in getting people and keeping them. The truth is they get the good people, because the good people go and they look at that and they say, I'm not going to put up with that military coercive model. So anyway.
No, that's fantastic. It's more productive too. That's the other thing. This is such golden nuggets you've put out. We could talk a long time about this. We're running out of time, but I don't want to forget, let's do a shout out, how people can reach out to you, because I'm sure they're going to have questions for you.
So Kevin at fastestrroute.co, not com.co. So fastest, FASTESTROUTE. Kevin at fastestrroute.co is the best way to get through to me.
I'm going to make it even better way. I'm going to get a little crazy here. I'm going to give 2 gifts out for the first 2 people that reach out to you. So Kevin's going to let me know who it is, and then he's going to get me your contact information. I'll get your email address. I'm going to mail you something to thank you for reaching out to Kevin, because you can tell through this show, this guy knows what the hell he's talking about. Excuse me, Lord, about saying hell. It's not a bad thing, but, and I like that, because we're trying to do so much in this world by ourselves. You're right. Masterminding, community, and support are missing. You're bringing it back. Yeah. God bless you for that. And I'm going to support you 100%, because I love what you're doing. With that being said, you've given us a lot of information, a lot of golden nuggets. Can you give me one more piece of advice for my audience through their journey that's helped you?
Yeah, so I'll talk to people a long time and I give them a lot of advice, and I end it by saying, look, all of that's good. Don't get me wrong. But the thing that's most essential is having some structure where you're in recurrent conversation with people in the same game with you. You've got to be talking to people. You got to get out of your own head. If you're feeling alone, certainly my program helps do that. But if you can't afford that, if now's not the right time for that, then get your own, set up, have a monthly meeting with a bunch of people and just talk about your business, because man, putting your head together with other people over time, you will learn all the other stuff I have to share with you, because we all sort of see a lot of the same thing from a different angle. So talk to people, get out of your own head and talk to more people.